Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's ESK8 UK live experience. And today we're joined with IIan, the Metroboard founder and ESK8 legendary manufacturer, in with the bricks right from the start. IIan, you're joining us from Israel, I understand. How's things over there?
Pretty good. Yeah, we're getting through some last minute winter weather, but spring is around the corner. So obviously it's a pretty warm climate in general, but we do deal with rain and wind for like a couple months out of the year, and then it's like ideal Eastgate weather year round.
Mm.
Pretty much. So yeah,
Yeah, well, I'm up in the northeast of Scotland, so we're probably the opposite way around. So we get a couple of months a year of nice Eastgate weather, and the rest of the time it's like checking the weather forecast. And here's Craig Taylor from good old Australia there, so he knows about good weather as well because they've quite often I see these guys' videos, and it's I tell you, it just rubs our nose in it. It's like another
yeah.
day of glorious sunshine.
Well,
So
I feel your pain because the Metroboard business was started in Portland, Oregon, which is also a very rainy environment. So I know about the year-round crappy weather experience. So yeah, I know what it's like. But yeah, I guess you just got to take advantage of those sunny days when they're there. So
absolutely, that's the thing. It's all about making the most of it, and I guess that it's. I mean, we'll get into thinking about different ideas and what people want to see from a skateboard later.
okay,
Um, but some of that, I guess, some of that can be dependent on the environment that you're living in as well. I mean, where I am, there's lots of hills, for example.
hmm
So you need decent decent range because a lot of the range tests, for example, are done on flat ground, with no wind. Whereas up
okay,
here, you're gonna knock a good chunk off any of those
hmm
range estimates.
yep, I hear you.
So Ilan, obviously you've been making boards since 2007. You started Metroboard then. You've been skate since even before that, back in 2003 and stuff. So,
Right.
um, so thinking about the Metroboard, I mean, I guess when you kind of 5:30 a.m. prepping for another sunny day, I don't know. I tell you, you can go off a man, Craig. You can go off a man. Um, no, I guess it was round about the Metroboard X was obviously quite a long time in the making, and you'd um, got that board out there, and it had the twin bush ends and everything. And James Lewis Moran's joined us from Leeds, Seacroft in Leeds. I was riding with him earlier this week for the first time in person, so that was good. But yeah, so I guess there was quite a lot of innovations on the Metroboard X, the belt self tensioners and the twin bushings and stuff like that. So you've got quite a history of um, good customer service, good high quality boards and stuff like that. So what made you? I guess the first question is what made you take a step back from it? Uh,
Right.
what-
Yeah, so it's definitely it wasn't a very easy decision, but I've been living in Israel since 2012, and I started the business in the US in 2004, and it was getting difficult managing it remotely. Kind of like was living in a bubble here, and it was nice for a while, but I decided at a certain point that I kind of wanted to get more integrated into the local community, and it was just kind of felt like it was time for me to do something else. And also, to be honest, the financials of the business weren't amazing either, and it was kind of like, you know, living with the unknowns of where the financial money was going to come in the future was another variable as well. But so I kind of decided to step out and let someone else take the reins, and I basically started working as a mechanical engineer, which is my official background.
yeah,
Since about a year and a half ago, I started working at a startup in Israel. I actually work at a place that they're developing robots that clean solar panels. So it's kind of like a very slow moving skateboard that has a brush at the end of it, and it cleans the solar panel so that it can work efficiently. So it's actually very cool because I have a lot of a lot of the skills I gained from the business are relevant, like working with batteries, working with motors, motor controllers, sensors. So it's a lot of leverage from what I've learned is applicable, and I'm helping them take them from like a prototype to a production product, which is fun. I like that transition. It's
Yeah.
like starting from scratch and a lot of challenges, but it's also very rewarding. So, and again, like I said, I'm using a lot of the same skills that I developed in the business, so it feels like I'm in the right spot. Yeah, so I've been doing, and I'm continuing to do that. Still, it's my day job basically.
Yeah.
And it's a fun environment. So we're very small. We're like a team of about 15 people, mainly software people, because a lot of the product is, of course, like how to maneuver on a solar panel autonomously and not fall off the panels. That's the challenge, is not to fall off the panel and kill
Not
someone.
falling off is always good, yes. So that's good. So I guess, and I've just come to James's comment. He loved the Metroboard X and its trucks with the built-in lights. So I guess, I mean, you guys were doing that, kind of again, probably a bit before a lot of other people were putting integrated lights into boards, especially bright lights, where you could actually, not just a little bit of background lighting. So that was quite good innovation, I guess. But
Yeah, so it's always been a priority for me to have good lighting, because like the early skateboards didn't have any lighting at all, and it was like, for me, it was like a no-brainer. Just like any other vehicle, you want to be able to see and you want to be seen. So it's kind of like,
that's
an obvious
true.
feature that we needed.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, my background originally, I've mostly motorbiking since I was 17, and I'm very, 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 very aware of how vulnerable you are as a road user, particularly with a slim profile. So I think so whatever you can do to make yourself visible is it could be a lifesaver. I don't know if you know Russ Latonia, who's done quite a lot of work with Ecomobile and now Propel, but he got hit on the streets, I think about 40 miles an hour. Somebody just hit him from behind and drove off a few months ago. Just appalling. So yeah, I think safety is really important. Just coming back, I want to come back to one of the points you made there about the financials not being so. Despite the fact it was like a really well-established brand, a good reputation, you were selling kind of high-end products. Even so, I guess that's one of the things we're seeing in the market is that it's still quite a fragile market, isn't it? If one thing goes wrong or somebody, kind of leapfrogs or hits something that gets gets people's attention, that there's quite a few organizations that have hit tough times or gone under, where you wouldn't necessarily expect them to. So I guess that's one of the risks, isn't it? If that's your only source of income, you're putting all your eggs in that basket.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a dynamic industry, as you know. I mean, there's like so many different players in the market. Like when I started, there was like literally, I think, two other players in the market. It was like eGlide and ESK8, which was back in like 2004. And like, so it was a much smaller market. Now, of course, it's like everywhere. And so there's more challenges. I mean, obviously there's still a market for like, high-end boutique style brands like we were and still continue to be with new owners. So I think there's still a market for high-end boards, as you know. I mean, people are, if you make something that people like, they'll pay any amount of money for it. That's what I've learned. Now, that doesn't always mean it's financially like the best way to make money. I mean, there's probably easier ways to make money in this world, but obviously I really enjoy this industry, and it's just like a labor of love. So it's beyond just the money side. I just enjoy doing what I do, and it makes me happy to produce a challenging or a satisfying product. So, but yeah, I mean, the financial challenges, if you're in this business purely to make money, it's probably not the best way to do it.
Yeah.
If you just love the sport and you're okay with like, dealing with the ups and downs, then yeah, it's still a viable industry. But yeah, there's definitely some challenges, obviously, as going to this. The market is bigger and bigger, and there's more and more players. And if this is your main source of income, it can be challenging.
Yeah. So thinking about then, I guess so. you've been based in Israel for a while, and you're saying, what's the mark? How are you gonna? What's the business model, I guess, for your new? Have you got a name for your new brand?
No, yeah, I'm really at the beginning stages. I just kind of like started putting some pieces together of like kind of in my head I have this idea of what I want to build, and like but I can give you some basic information. Like I bought a Metroboard. I always wanted to build like a flexi deck board that is like kind of like a boosted equivalent, for lack of a better word. But yeah, I want to basically make like a speed only board with a flexible deck, just to make the riding experience as comfortable as possible, and also have a lightweight board that like kind of gets back to the, I mean, of course nowadays like weight is not as critical because people want these big boards that can ride over anything, but there's still like, even with a Metroboard X, like there's some days where I just don't want to take it out because it's just too bulky. I want something that's really light and compact. So I want a light, compact board that has some flex to it for comfort, and it has enough power, to meet your daily needs. It may not be the most powerful board on the market, but that's not my goal. I want to make something that's like about portability and comfort, basically.
Right.
So that's my general idea. And I'm partnering with Loaded too. Like I have some boards from Loaded that I'm planning on working with. So obviously they make some amazing decks that are flexy and look good, and will give a really nice ride experience. So I've already reached out to the owner of Loaded, who I've known for many years as well, and we're planning on working together to put something together. Yeah.
So James was asking about the design, and I guess one of the things as the years have gone on is like you say, the diversity, the range of what's considered to be an ESK8 has really grown. So you've got everything from your kind of Stoke-sized kicktail, very, very portable sort of,
Right.
your penny boards with a Revel kit on it or whatever, and your street sort of longboards, and then you've got kind of boards with suspension, some street ones, some more like Baja boards and stuff like that are all terrain, and your sort of mountain boards. So it's a vast spectrum, I guess. So when you're saying light and portable, are you thinking a short board with a kicktail, or are you still thinking a longboard but a light longboard?
Yes, so there's two models that I'm initially thinking about doing. One's going to be like a longboard, like I'm thinking of using the Loaded Dervish deck, if you're familiar with it, which is like a 43-inch deck. It's got flex to it. It's kind of very comfortable, very fun deck. So that's what I'm thinking for kind of my longboard model. And then I do also want to make a shorter board as well. And I'm planning on using the Loaded Poke deck, which is like a 34-inch deck, which has a kicktail, kind of a mid-sized deck, which would be good for kind of, super portable portability and like, just a fun little compact ride, basically. And so those are the two models I'm initially planning on building some prototypes with. And I'm planning on using cloud wheels for the wheels. And that's going to be kind of my starting point. And so yeah, I'm in the process of like working on like a battery case design that'll handle the flex. That's one of the challenges when you're dealing with a flexi deck, is having a battery case and a battery that can handle it. So
yeah, I know. I've had a couple of boards that have had those kind of like armadillo, sort of like those segmented battery cases, and that's been pretty decent actually. It didn't seem to get in the way too much of the flex, and I've never had one crack on, but I know obviously some of the earlier designs of some of those segmented ones, the plastic wasn't flexible enough and it got in the way, I guess. So just an interesting one about that. I guess we were talking about the different weather conditions we've got to deal with, and one of the things and it's not just a British thing, I guess it's some part of the States as well, and that we have to deal with extreme cold. So it might be dry enough to go out, but it's actually freezing cold. And obviously one of the things that batteries absolutely hate is the cold weather. Now I've got to admit that my new board is got, because it's like an all metal chassis, the battery box is part of the chassis and it's all metal. So that's a real nightmare in terms of conduction. It's fine if you're testing it in the US or in some parts of the US and Australia, but I'm actually in the process of building a sort of a neoprene based kind of insulator for. And to be fair, it's not just 2 months of the year. It'll probably be like 6 months of the year. So I guess I'm just wondering, have you thought about that in terms of, in terms of the heat retention or heat management, in terms of those battery packs and
so basically, you're trying to keep your battery warm. It sounds like in a cold environment. Is that, if I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah, either having something. Yeah, so I suppose that avoiding condensation and particularly and avoiding the range loss through the wind chill through the cold weather. I mean, I know that for example for example the Evolve Hayden has got like sort of like air scoops to let air through. And I think the first thing I would do in this place would be to block those up. I don't need any extra air cooling. But so I wondered whether that had featured as a thing. Even.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it just yet, to be honest. But I mean, obviously, I know the performance of the batteries goes down a little bit in cold weather. Is it significant enough to make an investment in the product? Maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it just yet. But but yeah, maybe there's, obviously you hear about like this with like Teslas and stuff that they talk about like in cold environments. There's some issues with the batteries, but I don't know. In the e-skate industry, I haven't heard too many complaints about that. But again, there's always an opportunity to make some improvements there. I live in, like I said, in a normally warm environment, so I have the luxury of not worrying about that too much.
Yeah, no, it's not good of an issue for you. And of course, the other side of it is you've got to watch that you don't overheat. So I guess I was thinking about like either an aftermarket kit that could something that was bespoke that could maybe help to insulate in the colder weather. And then I guess James just popped up a question about swappable batteries. Is that something that's going to feature at all, swappable battery packs? Or
that was another thing on my to-do list at Metroboard that never got done. So that is a good reminder that would be a nice feature as well. Because again, my goal is to make a lightweight board, and obviously, if you can make it swappable, you don't have to sacrifice range either. You have a spare battery pack you can swap out, and then you get the best of both worlds. So yeah, thanks for the reminder. So yeah, I'll put that on my list of things I want to add to the features of this new product. So yeah.
And James, a thumbs up for your grip tape and the patterns. So I mean, I get your Metroboard. I guess you had a certain look about them. You could instantly recognise a lot of the Metroboards with the red, the anodized, and the funky trucks and everything like that. So I guess just thinking about, are there any particular stylistic or tech cues that you're taking with your new, for example, is it double kingpin trucks or is that still a secret?
I think for the longboard, I'll definitely do double kingpin. On the shortboard, probably not because it may be kind of too unstable. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really nailed down the exact truck design. I don't have anything like too groundbreaking there just yet. But yeah, I'm thinking definitely double kingpin on the longboard. On the shortboard, probably either reverse kingpin or just like a standard skateboard truck, depending on how it rides. I'll have to kind of see what works best. But yeah, that's the plan. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And Suki's asking, what are 3 things you learned about founding Metroboard?
Okay. Well, there's a lot more than 3 things, but I'll start with well, yeah, I think the biggest thing that I learned is about like the whole like customer satisfaction model. Like, this has nothing to do with the technical side because that's a whole other subject. But like, what I learned is like, as many people know in this, like, as everyone's familiar with, there's so many bad customer service experiences in this world. No matter what product you buy, like even if it's a big company or a small company, like just to give you an example, recently I had a warranty claim with Microsoft for like a mouse that I had a 3-year warranty, and they literally passed me through like 10 people before I actually got anyone that could help me. And it's just a really annoying experience. And like my goal with Metroboard was like to basically avoid all that be the opposite of the typical company that tries
Yeah.
to ignore the responsibility. And like, we're a small company, so it's like it's a big deal. Like, I mean, we could ignore the customers, and maybe that's good for business, but ultimately, like, in the long term, it's not. And like our goal was always to, like, do what it takes to satisfy the customer, and like, give them the experience that they're not used to having with their typical customer service experience with other products. So that was one big thing, and I really enjoyed the satisfaction both from my side and also from the customer side, knowing that they're happy, and like, and if they're not happy, like, I always did what I could to make them happy the best I could. You don't always succeed, but worst case scenario, you let them return the board, give them their money back, end of story. I didn't. My goal was never to argue with customers about, like, I never blame the customer for any problems. Basically, give them the benefit of the doubt. If they're not happy, I'm not interested in having customers out there that I have their money, but they're upset, because ultimately that's going to be bad for business. So from the customer service standpoint, that would be like the main takeaway, I would say. From the technical side, just like being aware of what people want out there, because there's obviously, it's a very dynamic industry, and like, you can't make one board that's going to make everyone happy, but you just kind of do your best to listen to the customer, get the feedback, and then use your own know-how to try to find the a happy medium that meets something you can manufacture, something that's affordable, and something that satisfies what most customers want on a board. And let's see what else. And again, there's also the whole side of like the manufacturing side. Just basically making sure you have the right players involved. I started out building these boards by myself. Like the first 100 boards, Metroboards, I built myself in my basement, sweating, over in the cold night, trying to put things together. So that was my first experience. But then eventually we started hiring people, to build the boards. And I mean, even in the very end, like, we're still pretty small. We have like 2 or 3 workers building boards, and that's still pretty much what they're doing today. But that's a whole other interesting side, is just the whole, not just the sourcing of parts, making sure you work with the right suppliers, because as like, you're in the hands of your suppliers and your workers. If your suppliers send you crappy parts and your workers don't build the boards well, you're going to be living in a nightmare. So
Yeah, no, I know that's the thing, and especially when you go from, you could have maybe the best prototype in the world, and but as soon as you go to manufacture, it's down to the quality and the consistency of the production line, how well they put the board together, and whether or not they're doing things piecework and so that any compromises there. So it can be quite a challenge. I guess one of the things, as well, is that I know what you're saying about customer service and stuff, but one of the things that I see a lot, the other side of it, is sometimes people being vastly unrealistic in terms of what they expect. So they go out and immediately trash, stuff, and and then they're demanding, like stuff, to be fixed instantly, even though it's quite clear that it's been abused, or it's been, like it's been a day and nobody's got back to me and stuff. And it's like, come on, people, we're everybody's human beings. They're not robots. So I think sometimes there needs to be a bit of a balance, because I think sometimes people can be unrealistic about what they expect in terms of customer service.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, like, obviously, we were selling a product that was expensive. So the thing is that people expect, like, the moon, and like, if you don't give it to them, they're like inevitably disappointed. Now, of course, there are a lot of customers that are very grateful, but then there are always the more difficult customers that are like impossible to please no matter what you do. And even when you're doing the right thing, they're like, still sometimes you sense that they're annoyed, which is frustrating. But luckily, most of the customers that we dealt with were like, it seemed like we naturally would attract customers that were in our same mindset. And again, I understand you're spending a lot of money. You want to be satisfied both from the product and customer service. But yes, inevitably, like, what sometimes was hurtful is that, like, the same expectations they'd have from like a big company like, HP, or I don't know, Walmart or whatever. You buy some product, and then even though they might have a shitty experience, and then they just kind of accept it. Like, but from you, they're like, no, you have to be 100% perfect all the time. And if you're not, you're like, they get annoyed. So, and we're a small business, so it's like, we're not like getting rich off these boards. So like, just give us, yeah, you are spending a lot of money, but it doesn't mean we're making a lot of money. That's the difference. It's costing a lot of money because it does actually, our costs are that, that much minus, some profit, but, we're not like, tripling the price by any means, like maybe
No.
50% beyond what we're paying is what we're charging, but, and we're not getting rich off of it. So like, just give us a break. We're not, we are taking a lot of money, but most of it's going to someone else.
Yeah. So I guess and one of the tricky things, I guess, is if you start building more affordable boards, is that maybe, if somebody's spending premium money, they're maybe going to look after their boards better. But I mean, I look at more mid-range boards, sometimes like your Backfire Zealots and things like that. And folk are just going out sometimes and, just thrashing them straight out of the box, riding them in rain and stuff like that. So again, and still expecting everything to work perfectly. So I guess, are you going to change your idea about what people should be able to expect if you're going for more affordable, or is it still going to be higher end stuff? What do you think?
Yeah, that's something going to be higher end because I'm not interested in making like a mass produced board. I'm interested in doing like even more boutique than Metroboards. Because I'm literally I'm planning on just selling these in Israel at the beginning because it's kind of going to be a test market for me. We'll see how things go, but it's really going to be kind of like going back into do-it-yourself mode. With like sharing the love with some local customers, and then again we'll see how things go. But I'm going to kind of take baby steps at the beginning.
Yeah.
And see how things go.
So you're gonna actually put them together in Israel then, do you think, or are you gonna get the because
I'm going to build these myself. I mean, I'm literally planning to build these myself.
you're literally gonna be hand built.
It's not going to be a mass-produced product. I mean, it's going to be a boutique product, and whoever wants to buy it, I'll be happy to sell it to them. But again, I'm starting kind of small, and I'm going to see how things go. I'm really just having fun with it. I'm getting back into like I mean, that's how when I started Metroboard, I was literally just one of the early do-it-yourselfers that wanted to build their own board. That's how it started. Before it's not like today where like every other person is building their own board. So yeah, I'm kind of getting back into my roots.
Yeah. So Suki's asking about, you said you were thinking of cloud wheels. Are you going to have an 80 wheels option on the longboard?
I think I will at some point, but like my initial going on is just to make a very lightweight board, and kind of the AT direction kind of goes away from that. But yeah, I'd imagine that at some point I'll have that as an option as well. But again, like I'm trying to fill kind of a different niche in the market that there's already tons of AT boards out there, and I kind of want to go towards the, okay, let's make a really I mean, obviously Boosted had a huge fan base. I think that niche can still be filled a little bit. Doing something similar, but like with some, additional upgrades and improvements. What I see is like the ideal board. So I think that's kind of my initial direction. But we'll see how things go down the road. There's no need to limit anything just yet.
So James is looking even further ahead, 10 to 20 years. What do you see things being like then?
We're going to be riding on hoverboards at that point, right? We're not going to be on there's not going to be AT. There's not going to be we'll be in the third dimension at that point, I guess. I don't know. Come back to the
Back to the future. So thinking about if you're building each one, are you going to have lots of different bespoke options that, for example, that people can pick from a menu from, so that you can have it tuned to, so that the person can have it built. Say for example with the bushings and the lots of other things that you might want to, the riser pads and stuff like that. So you could have it set up with different angles or whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously when you're doing low volume, it's easier to customize. So yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, obviously, things like bushings, let the customer choose the harness based on what their weight is or their riding style. That's obviously kind of a no-brainer. Maybe again a few battery options we'll see. I mean, I'm not sure because it'll depend on the real estate on the board and how much flexibility there's for using different battery sizes. But yeah, I mean, as needed, there'll be like customization. Whether it's like design color wise or maybe just functional wise, whether it's a bigger battery or different wheels or whatever. So but yeah, I have kind of an initial goal, but like again, I'm going to probably add some variations based on what I kind of see as the ideal sweet spot for this kind of product. So
yeah. What about things like, I mean, I guess we've started to see in a couple of boards, with integrated brake lights that are linked to the remote. I personally think that's quite a quite a decent safety feature. I mean, brake lights that just work off motion, I don't think are as reliable with all the vibration, but one that has actually taken the kind of signal straight off the remote, so that you're braking with integrated lights. Is that something you're going to think about as part of it?
Well, actually, that's how the Metroboard actually works. I mean, it does have, like, when you go on reverse or you apply the brakes, the rear lights flash. So that's actually something that we did already. But yeah,
Yeah.
I plan on continuing to offer that feature because I think that's kind of, again, a critical safety thing. It just
Yeah.
looks cool too, So yeah, so there's no reason why I wouldn't continue to do something similar to that on this board as well. So yeah.
So you're keeping doing that. That's good. Are you going to have a horn on your remote?
Yeah, I may bring that back. Obviously, we had that on the Metroboard, the earlier models, and then on the X, we kind of took it off. But yeah, that would be another obvious, safety feature. And actually, it's funny. I recently bought a Tesla here in Israel, and they have these really cool. I don't know if you know, but they have these really cool horn features where you can make the horn not just a regular horn, but kind of funky horn sounds. So maybe we'll do something similar on an electric skateboard. It'll be fun to kind of have some quirky sounds, not just a typical horn sound.
Yeah, no, because I think the people who've tried to kind of lash up, one of the sort of electric bicycle horns to the remotes. One of the complaints is that a lot of the sounds on those are pretty trashy. They're not none of them are that good. The ones that you would actually want to listen to. So so if you can get something that yeah, you want something that you think, yeah, this reflects my board, and it's people are going to know that it's not just a novelty thing. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks for the reminder about the horn, because I think that is a nice feature to have, and obviously most boards don't have it. And obviously you can buy all these off-the-shelf, horns that I have like a huge collection. Once I started buying all these like random like bike horns that I could experiment with, like electric ones, and so I have a huge collection that I'll probably dig through, but I'll probably end up doing something custom as well. So, but yeah, it's definitely a nice feature to have, and the problem is getting people to notice that you're there, because often you'll have some unusual horn that people don't associate with it. They need to get out of the way. So that's the challenge, is like communicating. Yeah. Yes, please get out of my way so don't run you over.
Yeah. So, how much of the hardware have you kind of, so for example, have you identified, is it going to be VESC based, or is it, are you going to, or Hobbywing or something, or what are you actually going to base it on, and have you identified it like a particular battery cell configuration, or are you still working all that out?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna use a VESC. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer to me, just because it seems to me. I mean, unless I'm missing something, it seems like the best, speed on the market. I mean, I'm always wowed by the features that it has. Like, until something better comes along, I don't see any reason to go away from that. But so as far as the motor controller, yes, definitely gonna use VESC. As far as the batteries, again, I'm not thinking like a huge battery pack. I'm thinking like somewhere between like a 12S 2P and maybe a 12S 4P, depending on the actual deck. Again, I'm going to be optimizing for weight. It'll probably be like the 21700 cells, just so it'll be kind of as space as efficient as possible. So that's kind of where I'm leaning to. Probably somewhere between a 12S 2P and a 12S 4P, depending on whether it's a bigger board or a smaller board. And probably 21700 cells. Which ones exactly, I'm not sure just yet, but something that'll match the power needs of the product. So yeah.
Cool. So Suki was just asking, I mean, I guess for each of those, do you have an idea of kind of rough ranges that you're hoping to hit, targets?
Yeah, again, because I'm optimizing for weight here, it's not going to be like the longest range board on the market. But yeah, I would say probably a minimum of like, I would say my goal would be maybe like 16 to 20 kilometers, on maybe a smaller board, maybe up to like 30 on a longer board. Again, because the goal of this product is not to be the longest range board on the market. It's the board that you want to grab when you're going for a quick errand to the grocery store or whatever. You just don't want the bulk factor of a bigger board.
Yeah.
And it'll be like a more nimble board, where like you're not fighting the board. The board is like, you're one with the board, basically.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I've noticed, like for example, IIan's new super